The music ministry of David Trolley. Thank you, David. That was great. He always does what I ask him to do, and I don't know how. He's a superstar. He's a superstar. Just like each and every one of you. You're all superstars, aren't you? Yes, you're all superstars. Who do you think that you really are? Who did that guy 2022 years ago think that he was? Oh my God. I mean, the things that that man tried to pull off. If he did exist, and he must have existed in some form, because he's got all these stories written about him. And here, 2022 years later, we're still fighting wars over Christianity, and it's supposed to be about him, and we know that it's not. I mean, he's still a big deal. He is still a big deal. All over the planet, he's still a big deal. Yeah, who did he really think that he was? Why was he willing to do what he did if he did what he did? If he did what the Bible says that he did, why was he willing to do that? How did he do it? And is it really unlike any of us being who we are and standing in the midst of who we are and moving forth in this human experience with what we believe, what we know, what is the truth, and knowing that we're filled up with the love of God, that the kingdom of heaven is right now, and this human experience is what it's about, that God is with us right here and right now. And we're open to everything that this man who went through this ordeal 2,000 years ago had available to him is all available to us. But he called on it. He called on the Christ that each of us have. He called on it, and he allowed himself to use it. But that's another story. I want to talk about yesterday too for a minute. And I just thought we're going to talk about Jesus today because, well, it's why we are having Palm Sunday and Easter, and it's appropriate for us to talk about Jesus. And I want us to have a nice, relaxing time today. We just going to go through it and enjoy the fact that we're filled up, that we're filled up with the love and joy. We're filled up with the Christ. And so I wanted to talk about yesterday because I was so filled up when I left Slide Hill Park event yesterday. You know, it was so funny because I had shorts on. It was warm in Walnut Creek, and there was no wind. And by the time I got to Davis, I almost needed to batten down the hatches of the car. And so I was thinking in my mind, well, we're not going to be able to do morning altars because it's a little windy and they're going to blow away. And I know one of the 7 steps was to release, but we really wanted to, we wanted to become refreshed from making the altars before we had to release them to the wind. So, but it was such a good time, and the singing was so wonderful. And, you know, being there in person was just so good. And even though the wind was blowing, it was as though we were in this very present moment. The wind added to the present moment, and having the 18 people that were there was just wonderful. And one of the songs that the trio sang, Cam and Don Morrill, and let me see, who was that third? Oh, Julie Curry, that's right. I'm teasing you, Julie. And one of the songs they sang was Pour Yourself, or was The Face of God. And it's such a beautiful song. And we got to walk around and sing it to each other. Don was playing the guitar and we were singing it, and we were doing the signs to it. And it was just, it was getting filled up. It was getting, fill yourself in me, wonderful spirit. And so I feel filled up today, and I want to thank the team for putting it together, and I want to thank everybody that's helped with the service this morning, David for the music, and Kevin and Bob for Zoom operating and recording, and Julie for for being the chaplain, David Morse for getting our slides together, and if I forgot anybody, please forgive me. But it was a good time yesterday. And we've been going through this Lenten meditation at noon for the last, almost 40 days now. We've got 7 days left. And it's been wonderful. We've been releasing and renewing. And so we've been releasing our darkest fears, and we've been renewing our strength and courage of heart. We've been releasing any feelings of hostility or of worry or of resentment, and we renewed our practice of non-resistance, and we renewed our practice of non-resistance, and we renewed our practice of non-resistance, and we'll renew it again too. And so as you move through your day today, renew your practice of non-resistance. And Palm Sunday is the day that it begins Holy Week, and so I'm hoping that we've let go of a lot of the stuff that we wanted to let go this Lent, if you've been practicing it. And if you haven't, well, let's do it today together. Let's just toss it out. Let's open ourselves to the power of elimination. That's part of the Christ within us. And today we're carrying that Christ. And so open yourself up to the power of elimination, to the faculty of renunciation, and let go. Just renounce any power to it. And so I wanted to ask you, I wanted to remind you, well, let me ask a question. I don't often ask a question in the middle of service, but I'll buy lunch for anyone that can tell me what our service topic was last Palm Sunday. Now, wait, Cam, don't go looking it up. Does anybody remember? Well, we talked about, it was called Decisions, Decisions, Decisions. And we talked about Jesus being on the outskirts of Jerusalem at Passover and was going to make his entrance into the holy city. And what was the faculty? We were talking about his faculty of wisdom, about using the faculty of wisdom to make a decision about how he was going to go into Jerusalem. And, he sent one of his followers, a young man, into the nearby town, and he was specific about, there's a donkey that just had a colt, and I want you to go to the man that owned them and get the colt, not the donkey, not the full-grown donkey, but the colt, the newborn colt, and bring that back to me. And I'm sure that Jesus was having some time to think while everybody was trying to get his attention, while he was sitting on the outskirts of Jerusalem, waiting for this colt to come. And so they bring in the colt, and he has decided he's riding into town. He's doing it, whatever he's going to do. This is the start of whatever it is. He's let go of everything else, and he's made up his mind. I'm getting on this donkey and I'm riding into town on it. So this is Jesus the man sitting on the colt. And let's stop for a minute and see what Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of our Unity movement, says about the Christ. He defines it in the revealing word, Christ is the divine man. Jesus is the name that represents an individual expression of the Christ idea. Christ existed long before Jesus. It was the Christ mind in Jesus that exclaimed, "And now, Father, glorify thou me with thine own self, with the glory which I had with thee before the world was." So he's saying, we're together. I am in glory. I celebrate the fact that through the Christ in me, I am one with you in this human experience, just like I was before I was in it, and just like I'll be after it, just like I always am. Christ, the Christ, abides in each person as his potential perfection. Jesus Christ, the embodiment of all divine ideas, exists eternally in the mind of being as the only begotten. I don't want to say that, I put that on there by accident. But Jesus Christ, we use Jesus Christ as the embodiment of all divine ideas. We say that when we look at the Trinity of mind, mind, idea, expression. God mind produces ideas, the Christ. We grab those ideas, the Christ in us, and we decide how we're going to express it in this human experience through right thinking, or potentially through error thought, or maybe somewhere in the middle, who knows? And so now, going back to where we were last year at Palm Sunday, we left this Jesus who, I mean, when you think about it, when I look around at the group, and here we all had a Jesus that we went to college with. We all did. I mean, there was somebody that was different, that was radical, that was saying things that we wanted to hear, but were afraid to say them ourselves, and they were different than they had been. I mean, look at the feminist movement. Look at just the whole free love movement of the 60s and 70s and how that changed everything. Look at how religion began to be questioned. I mean, this has happened over and over again, okay? So here we were, and there's a lot of talk going on, and Jesus is about to ride into town, and they start out. And his followers are with him. And what are they doing? They're walking in front of him, and they're lying cloaks down, they're lying material down, they're lying clothing down, and they're also lying the fronds of palms in front of them. They're glorifying him, they're honoring him. Now, remember last year I said, just think about the times now, it's 2022. This is like a group of protesters marching into Portland. I mean, are we going to do something about it, or are we going to let it happen? What are we going to do about it? Are we going to hurt somebody, or are we not going to hurt somebody? But when you think about this story, know that whoever wrote these Gospels was using prior writings, the writings of the prophet Zechariah. Zechariah predicts that when the Messiah comes, he'll enter the city on a colt, and that the crowds will acclaim that here comes the Lord, here comes God. And so this is the prophet Zechariah predicting this. And so the writer of the Gospels lays it out as predicted, because that makes Jesus the Messiah. Follows the prediction. And so Jesus is coming into town on this colt, and the people have been in front of him, and as he enters the town, they're singing, they're screaming, Hosanna, the Son of David, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord, Hosanna in the highest heaven. And by the time this poor guy gets there, the whole city is stirred, and he knew they would be. He had to know with people screaming Hosanna and putting palm fronds in front of them. And someone yelled out, who is this? And the crowd answered, it's the prophet from Nazareth. It's Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee. Well, now this guy starts doing it. I mean, here's this guy. Not only has he come in on a colt, and they're screaming, followers are screaming that he's the Son of God and he's the Messiah, the one they prophesied about, but he goes into the temple courts, and he said, and it's written, I mean, here's how the story goes. He's driving out the money changers. He overturned the tables of them. He overturned the benches of those selling doves. And what they wrote was that he said to them, my house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers. Right thinking, error thought. How will I express myself in this human experience? Do I want to be in prayer that I can make, be in touch with the Christ within me? Or do I want to, do I want to get through this human experience filled up with error of thought? All right, let's sell some doves. The blind and the lame came to him at the temple, while he was at the temple, and he healed them. But when the chief priests in the temple of his own faith and the teachers of the law saw the wonderful things he did, and the children shouting in the temple courts saying, Hosanna, the son of David, the priests and the chief, they were indignant. It wasn't what the law said he should be doing. This guy was radical. He was standing there in the midst of what he believed. In the midst of what he believed, and he was fully carrying the Christ. He was using his 12 powers, his divine identity. He was standing in his truth. Well, when finally the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the lawmakers, began to question his authority. He entered the temple courts, and while he was teaching, the chief priests and the elders of the people came to him and said to him, hey, dude, by what authority are you doing these things? Who gave you the authority? Huh? Was it the chief of police? Did you learn this in school? Who gave you the authority? Or was it God? Was it God? Jesus replied. So listen to what Jesus says to him, and he maintains this. I will ask you one question. If you answer me, I will tell you by what authority I am doing these things. John's baptism, where did it come from? Was it from heaven or of human origin? Now, I'm quoting this from the New International Version, the NIV, so it makes it a lot easier to read. Well, the elders and the chief priests, they go off to discuss this. Where did John's baptism come from? Because John's baptism is a big thing at this time. And they're talking and they say, well, if we say it came from heaven, he will ask, then why didn't you believe him? But if we say of human origin, we are afraid what the people will say, and they'll hold that John was a prophet. Well, they're in a catch-22, so they say, we don't know. And Jesus says, well, all right then, I'm not going to tell you by what authority I do these things. And he begins his parables, which are probably, according to the Jesus Seminar, one of the few things that he really said in what's written that really came out of his mouth, because the parables are consistent in the way that he told his stories. He told the parable of the tenants, the parable of the two sons, the parable of the wedding banquet. And listen to the parable of the wedding banquet. And he's talking about the power of God and the resurrection. Everybody was concerned about life after death, about what was going to happen after they died. And so, accordingly, you went on to this or that or the other. But when they asked him about that, he replied, you are in error because you do not know the scriptures or the power of God. At the resurrection, people will neither marry nor be given in marriage. They will be like angels in heaven. But about the resurrection of the dead, have you not read what God said to you? I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but the God of the living. The God of the living. It's about the human experience, not about death. It's about this human experience. And when the crowds heard this, they were astonished. Well, this is too much. And it's beginning to circulate all over the place that this guy is telling these stories, and they're trying to figure out how they can get him arrested because it's a power thing. And is he trying to steal the power? And they're scared because the chief priest has power, and they've got the Romans leaving them alone, and the Roman thinks that they have power and they're God, right? The Roman God, the emperor. And so they think they're God. And here's this guy say, people are saying he does these godlike things. They all want to lock him up so that they can hold on to their power, don't they? And we've done that. When we're afraid that we're losing our power, we blame somebody else. He took my power away from me. That's not true. Nobody can take our power away from us. When we're in our Christ consciousness, we have all the power we need. And so we move through the week, and we have Judas. They're trying to find a way to arrest him, and Judas agrees to betray Jesus, and even Jesus says it out loud. One of you, one of the 12 went to the chief priests and asked, "What are you willing to give me if I deliver him to you?" And they gave him 30 silver pieces, and then they come to the Last Supper, and they dine together at Passover, and he tells him, he says, "One of you is going to betray me tonight. One of you will." And they all go around to deny it. And even Judas said, "Surely you don't mean me, Rabbi." And Jesus said, "You have said so. You have said so. You don't mean me, Rabbi, do you?" You said, by saying that, you said it wasn't you, right? "You don't mean me, do you, Rabbi? You have said so." And those are four important words, because that's what Jesus said as he moves through his trial, his accusal, his betrayals. They accuse him. "So are you God?" "You have said so. You have said so." That's your story. That's the story that you've created in your mind about me. I believe that God and I are one. I believe that love thy neighbor as you love yourself. I believe in the 12 commandments. I believe in that the kingdom of heaven is now. That is the Father's good pleasure to give it to you. That right here in this human experience. It's our pleasure to be here. It's the universe's pleasure to give it to us. And so we know what happens. I mean, he's arrested, he's crucified. Peter betrays him. We're told that Judas betrays him. He's whipped with lashes. He's given a cross to carry. Then they nail him to it. And when he yells out in a last moment of "Father, why have you forsaken me?" He's scared, just like we all are, and it's okay. But then he knows that God and I are one, and he relaxes, he releases, and when the Romans hear him saying this, they get a swab of vinegar, the story tells us, and put it in his mouth, which makes it even worse. And he releases and he lets go. How did he do this? How did he go all through it? I mean, it's not unlike our own story when you think about it. I mean, it's a dramatic story. It creates a picture. Movies have been made of it. The Passion of the Christ, the Easter Sunday, huge churches put on the Passion of the Christ. How did he go through this? What a story. Some religions even say this human experience is about that suffering. We have to suffer through this human experience. It's what we're about so we can get into heaven. And while we're suffering, those of us that believe that the kingdom of heaven is now, that it's the universe's good pleasure to give it to us, we're having a good time. We're down here on the human. I mean, we're not having a good time all the time. We get stuck, but we're having a good time. We're not living for when we die. We're living for this human experience. And when you look at the words that he's saying radically to these people, you can be joyful, you can be peaceful, you can be pure love. But just like today, not everybody wants to hear that. Not everybody wants to hear that. Well, how did he hold on to that? And it's the same way that we can hold on to our Christ nature. It's nothing we haven't talked about before. But the one thing that I want you to remember, and we talked about this at the very beginning, and we talked about it yesterday when we walked around and looked at the 12 powers. And we know that those 12 powers are our tools in our Christ consciousness to help us get through situations like this Palm Sunday event. But we talked about the power of elimination, about the power of renunciation. And let's not forget that the story includes the fact that this man, Jesus, before he came into Jerusalem, went into the woods for 40 days and 40 nights, whatever that meant. And my God, the way the story goes, I mean, there isn't a thing that didn't go through his mind. I mean, the devil came and saw him how many times, but there was plenty for him to eat while he was out there. And he had to clear his mind. And so there was new food there. There was manna in the wilderness, and he let go. And we have to do that too. We have to let go of old thoughts, things that aren't serving us. We have to make it clear for what we're going to do to go on our way. Before he was going to ride into Jerusalem on that colt, he ought to get pretty darn clear and let go of some fear, let go of any questions he might have. Was he right? I mean, how is this going to play out? You got to let go of all that. And we can call on our power of faith anytime we need to. My God, why have you forsaken me? Well, I haven't forsaken you. I'm right here with you. I always will be. As you take your last breath, I will be. And so he had faith. And so we call on our faith. We call on our faith. And he had to let go of his stories. He definitely had to let go of his stories. And if I want to stress anything else, because it's part of elimination, we've been talking a lot about it. And you had Reverend Martha Creek here for 2 Sundays, and she is the queen of letting go of your story. She wants you to realize, let go of those stories. I love her because she'll work you till you let go of that story. And that's a good thing. So he let go of his stories. He let go of fear. He let go of whatever everybody else is trying to tell him. And he got firm with his belief, and he went in with the Christ presence fully in front of him, not his stories, but the Christ presence. And I'll tell you, the guy was good for praying. And our thoughts are prayers. We sang that yesterday too. Our thoughts are prayers. So be careful what you're thinking, be careful what you're saying. Our thoughts are prayers. When we speak it, we thought it, and it's prayers. So be careful. And are you the Son of God? That's what you say. He didn't say anything. He didn't tell him anything except the truth, right? That's what you say. He didn't say it. That's what you say. I'm not going to say it. What do you think? You're the Son of God too. Can you say that? I'm the Son of God. Each of us are the Son of God. Don't forget your 12 powers. And I want to just share, we've had Paul Hasselbeck here frequently, and, Paul is an absolutist in his metaphysics pretty much, and some of you have taken classes from him, but I wanted to end with what you recall that he writes the absolute word as his version of the daily word. And so this is Paul's version of the absolute word, or his absolute word. Today, Palm Sunday, April 10th, 2022, I celebrate and embrace the Christ, my divinity. Palm Sunday begins with Holy Week, commemorating Jesus' triumphant entry into Jerusalem. He arrived riding on a donkey colt. The excitement of the gathered crowd amplified this celebration as they waved palms and shouted. Metaphysically, Jesus symbolizes a place of perfect peace in my consciousness, I'm sorry, let me say that again. Metaphysically, Jerusalem symbolizes a place of perfect peace in my consciousness. Jesus, seated on a donkey colt, represents the mastery of my divinity over my basic nature, entering a state of peace. The crowds of people represent my thoughts and feelings, joyously welcoming the awareness of the Christ, my inherent divinity in my consciousness. I celebrate, calm, and know this peace is my own as the awareness of the Christ dawns in me. With each prayer on my lips, every thought and feeling in my mind, I celebrate and welcome the Christ, my inherent divinity, anew. I celebrate and embrace the Christ, my divinity. So I celebrate and embrace the Christ in each of you. I celebrate your divinity. Thanks for being here today. Have a great Palm Sunday and enjoy your breakout rooms. And thank you, David Trolley.